I'd like you to think about this question. Do you think that if you could communicate effectively enough that you could dramatically improve your relationships? That's what I thought. But it turns out that it's not enough to communicate effectively. The focus of my dissertation was how to sustain long-term passionate relationships. And what I found is that the most important steps happen before you actually communicate. Effective communication is the last step to creating vibrant, fulfilling relationships of all kinds, whether romantic or otherwise. Now here's an acronym, DEEP, for deepening your relationship, that shows the 4 steps to more fulfilling, vibrant relationships. Like a movie that starts with its ending, let's start with the last step and see how far good communication can take you and where it might fall short. Here are Sarah and Max not communicating effectively.
What?
You're just always making me late. Okay, do you ever consider anyone else?
Okay, I don't need this right now. I had a terrible day working on my project, and there's a ton of traffic on 75, all right?
I told you to take the back road. You decided to wear this tonight?
Chill out, okay? You're the only one that's gonna care. Besides, I was washing your car.
Well, I didn't ask you to do that, okay? You should have spent that time changing your clothes. Next time, just please plan ahead. Let's get in the car.
Well, you can see how that went. Both Sarah and Max obviously feel unappreciated and criticized. Their communication is confrontational, and neither is getting what they want. Now, you can't always get what you want, but you might get what you need. Think about what you do to try to get what you need. Better choice of words? Words are like weapons. Once launched, there's no getting them back. But communication is about 80% nonverbal. So your intent comes through your body language, your tone of voice, and your facial expressions. So positive intent is probably the most important key to effective communication. And with that in mind, let's look at Sarah and Max communicating with positive intent.
Hey, I realize you have a lot going on at work with your project and everything, but I waited for 20 minutes. What happened?
I know. I'm really sorry this happened again. I just couldn't finish it on time.
No, it's okay. I was just worried. I don't like being late. You know this is a formal event, right?
Yeah, I didn't have time to change. I washed your car, though.
I appreciate that. Next time, let's just plan ahead, yeah?
Yes.
Let's go.
That was better, right? They were much less tense. There was no hostility or contempt. But are they each getting what they want? Are they living life fully and bringing out the best in each other? I don't think so. Chances are Max will continue to be late, Sarah will continue to set herself up for disappointment, and both of them will feel frustrated and resentful. This is where the first 3 steps come in. Let's look at how Sarah and Max might improve their situation if they first balance their own desires and expectations and find equilibrium.
Hello, thank you for this.
Of course.
Okay, if you have time and want to stop by, that'd be great.
Sweet. I might go fishing, but if I don't, I'll be there.
Oh, wonderful. Have fun.
You too.
I've heard it's beautiful. What did you grow up doing? Oh my god, it's okay. Hey, you, what a nice surprise.
How's it going?
It's going well. I'm so glad you could make it.
Me too.
Max, this is Alex.
Hi.
Alex, Max.
Max, nice to meet you.
Likewise, how you doing?
Did you catch any fish?
I caught 3.
3.
3 big ones, yeah.
Maybe it's the shirt.
So you can see they're enjoying each other now, and neither of them are resentful. Sarah seems more relaxed, able to go to her events without waiting for Max, and Max seems more confident in himself because he's pursuing some of his own interests. He's pursuing some of his own interests. But this is not the only outcome. If it were you or me, it could be a completely different outcome. So now let's turn our attention to you. I'd like you to think of a situation that is not working for you, even though you're trying to use good communication. Got it? Okay, the first step is balance your desires. I'm going to list 9 universal desires that are underlying your everyday desires. Try and pick out the ones that you tend to focus on in your situation and in general. Certainty or security, excitement or novelty or fun, learning or growth, appreciation, respect, connection, love, purpose, and contribution to others. If what you want is a fulfilling relationship, then that involves a balance of these desires. If you focus too much on one, that'll cause you to sacrifice others. For instance, too much certainty, life becomes predictable, and you miss out on excitement. But too much excitement, life can become chaotic, and you can sacrifice certainty. Now, when one person in a relationship focuses on one desire, and the other focuses on a different one, they will tend to polarize and become defensive and stuck in a cycle of conflict. Think about arguments about money. You have enjoyment right now versus security in the future. Now, if you focus on a variety of desires, then you can understand where the other person is coming from and speak to their desires and fears, because you share them in part, and you won't polarize. Now think about your situation and whether you're focusing too much on one desire, and what kind of balance might help the situation. The second step is have realistic expectations. Have you ever tried to get somebody to change who they are? Like one of your parents or your children, or maybe your partner? The reality is that nobody will have all the qualities you desire. And most people don't change at all. People just don't change very much. So ultimately, you only have control over yourself. So you may want to change your expectations, or your situation, or your relationship status. For instance, if you're tired of waiting for somebody who's always late, then only meet them in a place where you don't mind how late they might be. For instance, a cafe or a party with other friends, not in a parking lot. Now, what if you're in a situation where somebody's attacking you verbally all the time, picking apart every little thing that you do? Then find the strength or the help you need to end or to at least limit the scope of the relationship. Now, having realistic expectations also means giving up complaining and blaming, which can be hard to do. Now imagine that you decide not to go to an event because your partner or friend didn't want to go. And now you regret not going and you blame them for it. I know I've done that. When you blame others for your decisions, you don't change reality. You just create conflict and you give away your power. Instead, if you take ownership of your own decisions, then you become empowered to achieve your desires. So think about your situation and think about whether you are trying to change somebody or something that you don't have control over, and whether you might want to change your expectations to better reflect reality. The third step is find your equilibrium. Have you ever felt like you're playing the same role with the same script over and over again, unable to get what you really want? Often, the choices we make are not really by choice, but by habit. We develop personality traits, in part by adapting to the environment, which is healthy and normal. Imagine a child who's praised for pleasing others and becomes accommodating. Isn't that cute? Another child is praised for being assertive and becomes, a take charge kind of kid. And both are positive qualities. But over time, they can become exaggerated and they can become automatic, default behavior. The accommodating child might become compliant and lose a little sense of self. The assertive child might become controlling, which makes collaboration difficult. Here's some other examples of default behavior. Rather than finding your equilibrium and then deciding how to behave according to the situation. If you're always responsible, then people might gladly depend on you, but they might not really enjoy being with you. If you're always joking around, people might think you're fun to be with, but they won't take you seriously. What if you're always giving advice or talking a lot? People will tune you out. What if you automatically caretake? People might appreciate your offerings, but you might lose the spark and the interest in the relationship. And if you're a couple, then too much caretaking will kill the passion. Now, why do you go to your default behavior? Because it's natural, it's easy, you're good at it, you've done it all your life, it's wired in your brain. And it works in many situations, so you don't want to get rid of it. Instead, pause and find your equilibrium so that you can dial down your default behavior and choose a new alternative approach. If you had met me 15 years ago, I was much more accommodating. But I'm learning to take my time, to get centered, and to choose to respond differently in different situations. To be accommodating without being a pushover. To be assertive without being controlling, which is a little harder. To withdraw from situations, but without abandoning the other, among other approaches. It's an ongoing process, but it's rewarding because you can live life more fully. The key is to have choice, balance, and nuance in your behavior. In summary, if you want to bring your relationships to another level, here are the 4 essential steps. First, balance your desires by focusing on a variety of different universal desires. Second, have realistic expectations by focusing on what you have control over and making sure that your expectations are in tune with reality. 3, find your equilibrium so that you can dial down your default behavior and choose new creative approaches. And finally, 4, communicate effectively by expressing yourself with positive intent and listening with positive intent. And then you just might find you can get what you need and what you want, and probably some satisfaction. Thank you.